Hi there, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Chaikin Minute. I'm David Shulin. In today's video, we are going to dive into the indices here in Chaikin Analytics. Now, in truth, we don't actually have the indices in Chaikin Analytics, but we do have their proxy ETFs. Everything in Chaikin Analytics with a chart is a stock or an ETF, and the proxy ETFs for these indices trade very easily. They're easy to buy, get in and out of, and we have access to the constituents as well. So where do these indices live? Well, here in the list panel, of course, we see our user lists, industries, and then we see indices. Many of the indices are listed here for you, but one of the tricks that I want to show to you is this. This icon is our list icon. You see it says when I hover my mouse over it, load ETFs in watch list. And when I click here, all of the index ETFs will now move into my list. So I can easily go through them, look at the charts, etc. for each. If I were to open up the indices list here again and click on a particular index, like the DIA or the Dow Jones, it will not bring all of those into my list here so that I can go through each individual index and view the chart. It will now bring all of the individual stocks in the Dow 30 into my list and then show me the chart for the Dow. I can then scroll through and look at the individual stocks that are inside this index. If I wanted to get back to the chart for the ETF, the Dow 30 itself, the proxy ETF that mimics the Dow Jones Industrial Average, I would click this list button. This chart button, and it would then show us the chart again. But I want to go back and bring all of the indices into my list here again. Most of the major indices are included for you here. At the top, we see OEF, which is the iShares S&P 100, the 100 largest stocks out there. These are, of course, like any of our lists, in order of the power gauge rating, with very bullish at the top and bearish or very bearish at the bottom. None of the indices at this time of this recording are very bearish. We know these are ETFs, by the way, because it says ETF right there inside the power gauge rating. Of course, all of the indices are ETFs, but in case you see that show up in one of your lists one day and you're not familiar with the ticker, now you know. We see the Qs, the NASDAQ 100. Right, always in the news, been leadership here recently with interest rates falling and tech taking off. We see the Russell 1000. We see the Russell 3000, normally used as a proxy for the entire stock market. Of course, the SPY, the original and most traded ETF in existence, the proxy for the S&P 500. And of course, what we use in relative strength versus the SPY, right? That SPY portion right there, it is compared to the SPY ETF. We've already talked about the DIA, the Dow Jones, the MDY Midcap 400, the RSP, the equal weight S&P 500. This takes all of the S&P 500 stocks, looks at all 500, just like the SPY, but instead of cap weighting them, where your Amazons, your Googles, your Microsofts are all counted much more, it treats each of the 500 stocks equally. The SLY, the S&P 600 index, and the IWM, the Russell 2000. Those are your two small cap indices. The SLY is a little more particular about the stocks that are included. On a day like today, where you may notice a number of your stocks are down in your portfolio, it might benefit you to go take a closer look at the indices. This will help you to understand that the entire stock market virtually is down today. Of course, the three most commonly discussed indices always live at the top of your workspace screen, the SPY, the DIA, the Dow Jones, and the Qs, the NASDAQ 100. That information, of course, matches up with the information here in our list. Now, we've already discussed how we can look at the stocks inside one of the indices by simply clicking that index here on the left side of the screen, but there are other ways to do it as well. We've already talked about looking at the constituents in a previous video inside an ETF. Remember, these are ETFs. They are treated exactly like any other ETF in the Chaikin Analytics platform. But of course, they also live in this special indices section, right? But how can we see the stocks inside the Dow? Well, another way is clicking the ticker right here at the top of the chart. Bam. And now charts DIA, but shows us the stocks inside the Dow. What if we searched, right, for the S&P 100? We could, of course, chart it by clicking the chart button. You can add it to your highlighted user list with the plus. And remember the list button. Clicking here will show us OEF on the chart, but also bring all of the stocks, the 100 stocks inside that index into our list. Indices also live in our ETF comparison tool. When you click ETF comparison, first thing you see is spider sectors, but index ETFs is also listed here. Again, in order, just like it was in our workspace list of the power gauge rating. Very bullish at the top, our bearish IWM, Russell 2000 small cap index here at the bottom. But what the ETF comparison tool now allows you to do with these indices is sort by performance over different timeframes, the power bar, et cetera. So it might be something you wanted to do to look over a 6-month performance or 3 or month or year to date, maybe mix some performance over different periods of time together to create a kind of a matrix of, where the strength has been, right? Where the strength is and outperformance lies. Yeah, that's what we can do with the ETF comparison tool. All of these exist for the indices much as they do for every other ETF out there. But the indices, of course, are a major starting point for our top-down approach. At Chaikin Analytics, we like to take a top-down approach, understanding where the strength is in the market at a high level before slowly narrowing down where the strength is, sector level, et cetera, down to the individual strongest stocks in those strongest groups. So these indices are a terrific place to get started to find where the strength is in the market. And of course, our commentary often is dealing with the indices as well, right? If we look right in the afternoon insights here from Pete Carmesino today on Tuesday, his first of the week, looking at the macro trends, what are we looking at? We're looking at the SPY, we're looking at the Qs, we're looking at the DIA, right? All of those indices that you can also analyze right here in the Chaikin Analytics platform yourself. Certainly read Pete's commentary, but keep your eye on what's going on inside an index. Take a look. Are the majority of stocks going to be oversold or overbought? Is it a time when maybe we want to be a little more aggressive when we see a major indices oversold yet outperforming, right? And don't forget, in the screener, we can often screen with the indices as a starting universe, right? The default is the Russell 3000, the sort of entire stock market. But we can also look at the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or the Dow as a starting universe. Do your work on where the strength is in the indices with the help of Pete's afternoon insights on Tuesdays especially, and we can then use the screener to determine which indices we'd prefer to focus on. If you want to narrow things down further from there, great. Continue with that top-down approach, but at least deciding if there is clear outperformance in the NASDAQ or the Russell 2 or the SPY, et cetera, is a great way to get started.